Welcome, everybody. I'm Selena Rezvani, and you're joining Women and Work Culture. This is a live stream all about those positive habits and practices for boosting women's leadership at work, right? Helping companies make those bold bets on female talent. I am so pumped to be here today with a guest I so admire, superstar in general, and author Minda Harts. Hi, Minda.
Hi, Selena. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. We're so happy to have you, and a huge welcome to our community too. I appreciate you, and seeing you every week is awesome. Your comments and questions. So drop us a note and tell us where you're joining from. I already see Neetu from Milwaukee, Anissa, Tampa Bay, Diana in California. Hi, all of you. Jump in with your questions and comments for Minda as we go around building that thought leadership platform, which is what we're talking about today. Philly represent too. All right, let me give you a little inside scoop on Minda in case you don't know her. She is the CEO of the Memo LLC. And that's a career development platform really just for women of color to help them rise. She is a best-selling author of the book, The Memo, What Women of Color Need to Know to Secure a Seat at the Table. And that's actually how I came to know Minda. I was just telling her about a year ago, I read her book and I was having a particularly tough week, kind of a dark time. And I read this book and I felt so empowered and so seen and validated. And I'm not the only one, because it's become this viral movement and it's been awesome to see. Minda's also an assistant professor at my alma mater, NYU, which is pretty awesome. Go Violets. It's a flower. That's our mascot. It's a flower. She's been featured on MSNBC's Morning Joe, Fast Company, The Guardian, and Time Magazine. And on top of all that, she hosts a weekly podcast, which is great, called Secure the Seat. She asked her guests a great concluding question in that podcast. You have to listen to it. So you're pretty much crushing it, Minda, and we're so excited to hear your perspective today. For all of you, our friends and community joining, let us know what your questions are for Minda around developing your thought leadership platform. So Minda, to dive right in here, I look at your book when I think about the messages in it. It's such a love letter to women of color. It really affirms the experience. There's so many how-tos in it about what you can do to take things into your own hands. What made you specifically want to reach people through a book? Why that medium?
Yeah, again, thank you for your support. Thank you for having me. Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a great morning with us. It's crazy to think that I even wrote a book. How you ever have those moments where you're like, did I do that? Kind of like a
yes
circle, did I do that? And I say that because I never intended to write a book, right? I was in my career and I thought I had been reading all these business books and career books by people who happen to be primarily white men and women. And I thought, okay, this is great advice, but something was always missing for me, Selena. And I said, I don't see myself in these books, and I thought maybe something was wrong with me, but I said, this just isn't my experience as a woman of color, as a Black woman in the workplace, being the only one. And Toni Morrison, she said, write the book you want to read. And that's what I did. I said, I don't know if I didn't consider myself any kind of thought leader or expert, but I am an expert at being a Black woman in the workplace. And I thought, there are some themes, and what would it be like if I wrote a book that centered our story so that we could read about our I can't write for every woman of color, but there are certain themes that we all experience at certain times. And so I wanted to put that in a career book so that we have something to say, yeah, me too, right? But not just that, how do we move forward too?
Yeah, and those were, I think, some of the most powerful moments from your book, were especially the moments of being diminished.
Yeah.
and feeling, not fully seen. There was so much, I think, sisterhood in the way you put that message out in the world and let other people in, to see, your own experiences. Now, I know you have kind of given some of that awesome recipe, you use to other people. You've held a writing retreat, helping people come up with their own book concepts. I'm kind of curious if there are 2 or 3 things you could share with us that you like to teach in that, about taking that book from cool idea to, an actual thing.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is really important is half of the issue is most of us don't know what we don't know, right? And so that was the reason why I wanted to hold the writers retreat that I did back in May, because it's so important to say, what did you do, right, to demystify this process? And I learned along the way because I didn't know, but I did have resources that I could call on people and say, hey, I know you wrote a book. Could you help me with this, that part? And I just wanted to take that out of it, because most of, even as women of color in the workplace, it's the opportunity gap, right? Sometimes we don't even know certain opportunities are taking place, or that we have the agency to do this. And so for those who attended the retreat, I said, I'm not here to tell you to self-publish or go to the traditional route, but if you have a story to tell, let's work on putting that out there. And so one of the things that I would say is write for you, write for your heart, from your heart. I wrote a story in which I didn't know if anybody would read it other than my parents, right? Or my
Right.
it was healing, it was therapeutic for me. And I knew I needed that for me. And if I could touch one other person. So always remember your why, and your why will make room for you. Don't look at, oh, I have this many followers on social media. Like, that's part of it. It's the mindset, because we think we can't do something because someone hasn't validated us, or we haven't appeared in this publication. And before I had all of those, bio additions, I didn't have any of that. Right? I just had
Yeah.
lived experience. And so never discount your lived experience. And just because someone tells you that this would never sell and that this would never do well, that's what I was told when I shopped the memo around. I was told that this book would never sell. You're not famous, all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
And had I listened to them, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And so no, you know what you know, and you are the expert. And so just figure out the way in which you want to put your information out, and the people that it's for will find it. And I think that's the main thing I want people to know about the book writing process. You just get started, start writing today. The rest will happen the way it's supposed to happen.
I love that message, because I think you're also kind of helping us get ready for the resistance. It's not if somebody says, I don't love your concept, I don't think you're, qualified enough. It's when that's going to happen, right? Somebody's going to say it's not blank enough, right? And you're almost, it sounds like you're saying expect some of that.
Well, there's always going to be opposition, right? But what I often like to tell people is, don't focus on who isn't supporting you, but focus on who is. Focus on the support system that you have. If you don't have that, build it. Utilize, LinkedIn Lives like Selena's. Get that juice, get that energy where you need books like mine, the podcasts out there, and just focus on what you have control over. And that's what we do.
I love it. Valerine saying, I just finished the memo and it was a great read. She's joining us today from Dallas. We are also joined by Lorene Phillips in Bermuda, who is a rock star and a leader I really look up to. So hi, Lorene and Valerine. It's great to have you all along too. And Kylie and Kara. Hi. I want to talk, Minda, about the mental part. You just kind of hit on this a little bit, but one of the themes in this show we talk about a lot is don't tell yourself no before they do.
Yeah.
Don't talk yourself out of the idea. Is there a kind of mental shift, a mental aspect to writing a book that you find yourself helping people work through?
Yeah, I talk about this in my book, and it's still, I think it resonates true with whatever body of work we put out into the atmosphere, is having this. We have two choices. You can have an enemy state of mind, or you can have an empire state of mind, right? And we all know what the enemy state of mind, that takes us nowhere. It takes us down the rabbit hole. We're greeting imposter syndrome on the left, and anxiety on the right, right? That's not a place we can thrive in. But if we choose to say, hey, I want to thrive, I'm going to do that self-talk, right? I'm going to have a growth mindset. And it's what I do to amplify. It's what I do. And again, the people in your community will find you. You know, I have to tell you, before I started writing the book, I started a blog in 2015. Every Monday, I'd put out this blog on the memo, and I would just write from my experience, right? Again, it didn't have a very large following, but it was just my way to say, you know, here's some of the things that I'm dealing with. Here's how I've handled it. These are the pitfalls I've made, right? And eventually, through that time and dedication and consistency, we came to a best-selling book. But you got to start somewhere, right? So I often think, what if I never started that blog in 2015, that newsletter? Because people maybe didn't think that racism was a thing in the workplace, right? Or that microaggressions weren't real. But I knew because of my experience. And so lean into your gut, honor your voice, and honor that good voice that's telling you that you can and that you are more than enough.
Yeah, because you know, other people may echo that too, right? Some of your own worst, you know, the little devil that's on this side saying, you're not qualified enough, you're not ready. Who are you to do this? Right? You may even hear that from other people, and honor yourself. I love that message, Minda. You have a question from Anissa. If you have an idea and you think it may be a great book, where do you start, or how do you know it's worth exploring?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. Thank you for asking, Anissa. So for me, one of the things that I did when I started writing my weekly newsletter, which I still put out on Mondays, didn't stop, remember to be consistent, was I started to write, and I started to track, you know, what were some of the messages that were resonating with people, right? What were, when I did start to build, you know, a subscription list, oh, networking seemed to resonate with people. Oh, imposter syndrome seemed to resonate with people. And I was able to use this as, what do they say, gathering information, right? I was able to gather, and I was able to see what are the pain points. So I would say to you, we're on LinkedIn right now, use that platform, like write on Medium, right? Post some different things, even if it's a couple of sentences, and see what people are saying and chiming into. It's actually, I'll give you a secret. Some of the things that I come up with or talk with, I'll post on LinkedIn or I'll post on Twitter, and I'll put it out in the atmosphere just to see what people's responses are to what I'm saying, because then that kind of informs me, okay, this is something here or this isn't something. And so start to carve your lane, start to put out those ideas and kind of see what the feedback is, because then you could start to hone in on what you want to focus on. And so sometimes you just got to put it out there.
I love that. It's with that growth mindset, isn't it? It's like experiment. There's a freedom in experimenting. You're not supposed to get it perfect every time, right? You can try it out, and leave it to me to always bring it back to food. But it reminds me of like putting out a big buffet. And you're seeing, you know, what excites people at the party. What do they keep coming back to? That's really smart. But I want to say one other thing. You made a point earlier, and I think it just deserves amplifying. You know, you said be consistent. And I think sometimes when you're not getting the followers you want, or you're not getting the result that would be so affirming, it's so easy to pull the plug or say, I'm not going to blog this week. I'm going to skip it for a couple. And I hear you saying, no, that steady drumbeat of messaging is important. Can you just speak a little more to that? Did you have moments where you're like, I don't feel like it this week, but you pushed through?
All the time, right? I still have moments where I'm like, oh, I gotta get it out. You know what I mean? I realize it's that consistency, right? And I also too want to honor those people who trusted me in 2015, to the people who will find the work and trust me today, right? That I'm consistent, that I don't stop just because now I've gotten to what some might seem as a successful place, right? Like the same message is the same message. Like I've been talking about advancing women of color and Black women in the workplace for years now, and when no one was paying attention, right? And so that message doesn't stop until we get parity, till we get equality. And so for me, it doesn't stop. And every Monday I keep putting out, no matter what, that's a priority. That's part of my personal tenet, right? And you have to understand what your why is. And so are you doing this because you want to impact and change? Or are you doing this because you want 1,000 a million views. I'm not saying either is bad, but that will motivate you. That will continue when you understand what your why is. And my why is playing for the long game, right? I know that equity is a marathon. And so that's why I continue to do it, because this Monday, somebody might need that certain inspiration that they're looking for. And I don't want to miss that opportunity to be an inspiration or stop somebody from, thinking that they want to quit, right? So a lot of this is just bigger than me. And I realized that I have to keep, like you said, pounding the drum until collectively we have breaking the ceiling, breaking the glass. So.
Yes. Retweet that. Let's. How do we shout that louder from the rooftops, right? I want to ask you one other thing about that, and I think a powerful part of your message, both in your book and in other ways you reach people, is your authenticity. I've seen you like pull the curtain back and, say this is nerve-wracking, or this aspect is scary, or things like that. Has that always come natural to you, or did it take some time, for you to say, I'm going to let people in?
Oh, yes. I have to tell you, this is a very uncomfortable place for me to be, because I'm a very, very private person. So, so to be so vulnerable, it's something that I am leaning into each and every day, because it's not a comfortable place for me. And I'm just going to be as transparent as I can. But what I realized is I have to be courageous, and I have to pull back the covers, because if I'm cautious, then nobody benefits from that. And you think about, as leaders, as individuals, when we're cautious, people don't benefit. The people that need us most will never get to benefit, not just in this generation, but the next generation to come. So if I didn't write this story, then maybe another woman wouldn't be able to get her book deal to tell her story, right? Or that woman who felt like, you know what, I just don't know if I can make it another day in corporate America, but reading Minda's story, has opened up a conversation. Now I'm talking with my network and those sorts of things. And so when I realized that, maybe you said too much, or you're doing you've exposed too much, I realized that it's bigger than me, and nobody benefits when I'm cautious. So I have to continue to be courageous. And I would pose the question to everybody: who are you going to be courageous for? We're here on this earth so that we can hopefully make it better for the people that are surrounding us, and that the people that are going to come after us. And so that's what keeps me being vulnerable. That's what keeps me sharing, because again, I don't want anyone to miss out on what they need, because I chose not to share it.
That's beautiful. And I want to just share quickly in my own life. When I was writing my book, my first book, The Next Generation of Women Leaders, I was doing it while an MBA student, and somebody changed my life. And so I so support what you're saying. I had one female professor in business school. I said, I would like to, interview women at the highest echelons of business to hear their lessons and pass it on to women coming up. And I said, there's only one problem. I don't know a single one, and I have zero connections to any of them. And she said, Selena, I'll make you a deal. I will greenlight your research request, your project, on one condition. You have to go for the whales, she said. You have to go for women you think will never entertain 5 minutes with you, let alone a whole interview. And I was so grateful she did that. I would not have reached that high, but it worked, and those women, 30 interviews later with women I really look up to, it worked. It became a book, it became a business, it changed my life. So I think a question, for all of us, a prompt for all of us is, whose vision, could you enlarge? Who's someone around you, who you could say, that's a great dream. Now think bigger.
Yeah.
Because it can change someone's life. It really can. Valerine had a question. She referenced back to your book about a white male mentor who gave you advice and helped you think through negotiations and opportunities. Do you have any recommendations on finding that advocate or supporter?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I laugh in my head because people ask me that question a lot, and I always say, yes, find a Chuck. Chuck was Chuck was my but Chuck can come in a lot of different forms, right? Chuck could be a woman, you know, Chuck could be another person of color. But the main thing is hoping that you have somebody who's part of your squad who will share that, right? That might have more experience or expertise in a certain area. And I wasn't seeking out Chuck. It just kind of, Chuck fell in my lap, right? But when I met him at an event and we were sitting at the same table, and I realized, you know what? I think even though me and Chuck couldn't be furthest thing from different, you know, in all many ways, I realized that there was something he was where I wanted to be career-wise. You know, he was just about to retire. He was a consultant. He had done all of those things. And I thought, you know, we exchanged business cards, you know, when you could exchange business cards. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to just throw this card in the pile, right? I'm going to follow up with him. And that's what I did. And Chuck has been in my life for 10 plus years, right? Because I kept cultivating that relationship. And Chuck didn't just say, hey, here's somebody who I'm going to give you some salary advice to. I actually had to cultivate that relationship so that he would feel comfortable and I felt comfortable asking, right? That I trusted him. So find somebody that you trust, and that starts with, and don't always look for the person that looks like you or that, you know, you both watch the same shows, right? Because there's something that connects us to people. And, you know, so don't count anybody out. I still communicate with Chuck. And, you know, he's still part of my squad in a different way now. And so your Chuck is out there. And remember to be a Chuck to somebody else.
I love this. I love Chuck. We could really run with this, and I think we're going to have to come up with some slogans or something. But you know, the other thing I'm hearing too, and I would encourage, you know, from going the author route and things with a, you know, a bigger publisher, and you've been with a huge publisher, Minda, is sometimes you need Chucks for these specific things when you're doing something new, a specific Chuck who is going to be that author mentor to you, right? Or, you know, maybe you want to be on a board, right? One day, you know, finding that person who's got that specific thing you're looking for. Because sometimes, you know, you have that all-arounder who can give you a lot of things, but this is kind of a job that never ends. You're always looking for your Chucks, aren't you?
You always are. I mean, I just want to make a point to what you just said, Selena, is about a month ago, I needed to find a new Chuck because there was a certain thing that someone asked me to do. And I'm like, I don't know that I could do that. I need some advice on this, right? I had to find a Chuck to give me that exact advice that I needed
I love it.
do that. And I tapped into my network to say, hey, I actually need a coach in this specific area. And I sourced my squad, and they said, yeah, reach out to so-and-so. And I didn't know this person, but because of the social capital, right, we hopped on a call, and I paid them for that hour of their Chuck time. and it was the best money that I ever spent, because sometimes we have to invest in ourselves if we want to take it up a notch.
We do. And I love that idea of kind of continually pushing yourself out of what's comfortable, right? I know there's an inspiring quote from Sandra Sotomayor about that, which I really love, that she's like, you know, I constantly put myself in situations that are a little outside what's known, what's comfortable.
Yeah.
Love it. Lots of people loving what you're talking about. Honor your voice and real talk, says Edwige. I want to ask you, Minda, I know you're working on book 2. Will you tell us, or can you tell us a little sneak, you know, pull the curtain back on that one and tell us about that project?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And again, I always say that success is not a solo sport, and I wouldn't even have the opportunity to write another book if it wasn't for people like you, Selena, and those who are watching, who've purchased the book, and those who will. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm working on book 2. It's a quick turnaround. It's going to be out next year, next fall, and it's called Pack Light. It's about how do we move through the racial trauma that we experience in the workplace. And so some of those, if you've read the book, I talk about workplace broken hearts, and some of that sits with us, right? And we don't sometimes investigate what that looks like, what that feels like, and allow ourselves to be free of it. So we're going to dig a little deeper into certain stories that I didn't tell in the memo, and how do you learn to pack light and release? Because the only way we're going to be able to be our authentic self is if we take care of ourselves, and that takes time, right? That's a journey, and so writing that book, and I'm also writing a third book, which I can't really talk about too much yet.
Mhm.
But so you're not done. You're not. I hope you're not tired of me just yet.
That's so exciting. I love it. Keep doing it. It's clearly a platform that's working for you among many others, in your recipe book, right? You're reaching people a lot of ways. Alfred is really interested in the self-publishing route. Is that something, a way you have gone or a way you would consider going, Minda? Or do you have any insights on self-publishing?
So I don't have a lot of insights on self-publishing because I haven't yet done that. But what I will say, when I hosted the writers retreat, I brought people who've done both, because I think people need to be well informed, and because only you know what's best for you.
Mhm.
What I will say is, don't stop yourself from putting that book out because you're waiting on someone to say yes to you. There are ways to get your books out there. And so there's so many more ways than, people who came before us. And so look into those different vehicles, to, printing, to binding, to ebook, all those things, audiobook. Don't wait for someone else. But what I will say is, there's a site called Manuscript Wishlist, if you've never heard of it. And that's an opportunity for you to find an agent. And so at least you can start to kind of push your ideas out there and get some feedback. So Manuscript Wishlist, check them out, Google it. But again, I think the main thing is finding, finding what works for you, because my equation may not work for somebody else, right? And their equation may not work for me. And so know that there's no one right way to go about putting your book out there.
I love it. Yeah. But also, if you are somebody who's kind of hesitant and who's nervous about getting it just so, you might like to have all your ducks in a row before you embark on something. It's hard to mess up with the approach of little experiments, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to do, some kind of permanent damage. You are just finding out what excites people more, what interests people more. So I know that's something I'm going to keep going back to, Minda, as a point of inspiration. Is there one parting truth bomb, as we call them, that you would like to share as people think about, you know, having bigger dreams in their life, getting their message out?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, real quick, going back to the last question, I also want to let people know that also, it may not be a book that you need to write, right? There's other vehicles to put out your content. So maybe you do everything you need in a podcast, right? So think about what those things are. Don't feel like you need to write the book because that's what you feel like everybody's doing. So figure out what's the best route for you. And so I just wanted to put that out there. But the other thing is, we're in COVID-19. Many of us are still quarantining. And so the one truth bomb that I want to tell you is, all is not lost. Don't think that you have to say, you know what, I'm not going to start living my life or pursuing my dreams until 2021, 2022. No, we're living right now. Don't give up. This could be some of the best years of your life, some of the best months of your life. And so don't put your dreams, don't put your goals on hold right now. Still be intentional, whatever that might mean. So I just don't want you to think that all is lost. There's so many people are still making decisions right now. People are still getting book deals right now. People are still getting promotions right now. So you can still live your life. It might just look a little bit differently. So give yourself permission to dream outside of the lines. And again, all is not lost. It just might look a little different, but know that you can still live life right now. Because I hear so many people, and even I've said it to myself, like, oh, well, I can't wait till the summer. Okay, well, the summer's here, right?
Right.
Wait till the next summer till I can get outside. No, I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm going to keep dreaming bigger. And I do feel like the best is yet to come, and I want you to be a part of that.
Well, that's so beautiful. You're getting so many hearts, Minda Harts, for that message that I think everybody needs right now. The permission to be optimistic and to still dream big and not kind of say someday when, but, tailor it to right now.
Yes.
Find a way to make it happen now. Minda, I know we're at the end of our time. I just want to say, one of the things I appreciate most about you is you're not just modeling for people what a shining, thought leader looks like. you are helping people, flex their own expertise and muscles and their own thought leadership. You're helping other people do that. And I thank you for it, and keep going. We need you. You're living, I think, the example of exactly what you're sharing with others. For all of you who want to stay in touch or learn more about Minda, you're going to see her book in our show notes, social channels, her website, her podcast too, which is totally fun. I will see you on her podcast. And I hope you'll stay in touch with me too. Check out my LinkedIn learning courses on being that fierce self-advocate and showing up with confidence. Join my newsletter tribe, and please follow me here on LinkedIn if you're not already. I wanted to say thank you again, Minda. Thank you to our wonderful community. Stay healthy and lead on.
Thank you. Thank you.